So I wanted to start, this year IBM will turn 108,
Yes.
which obviously requires a lot of care about reputation, but also agility and ability to transform. So can you tell us a bit about the big bets that IBM's making to sustain that?
It's an amazing thing to be a 108-year-old tech company because there aren't that many of them. And I think when you think about this, you have to be grounded in principles because the technology we sell changes. We used to sell cheese slicers, believe it or not, and typewriters and Census Bureau tabulators.
Typewriters, I remember.
And so,
how many remember the
right,
typewriter?
exactly. So, but of course, technology changes all the time. For us, there's three core pillars of the IBM brand. One is always being at the forefront of innovative technology. Today, that's about things like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, blockchain, certainly the journey to the cloud that all companies around the world are on. It's also about industry expertise. You can't really change the way the world works if you don't know how the world works and if you don't have your sleeves rolled up helping companies like Bloomberg and others figure out how to change. But finally, and this is really the heart of the conversation today, it's about reputation, trust, and responsibility. We can't say people trust us, but certainly in being in business for 108 years, those issues of trust and responsibility are at the forefront of the decisions we make. Things like artificial intelligence, how that gets shepherded into society is really critical. We all hear far too many stories of how that can go awry.
Right.
So IBM, in that case, is really committed to principles that we've published on how we think these new technologies should be ushered in a way that's responsible. It's also about things like jobs. You know, we fundamentally believe every profession, every job is going to be reshaped by artificial intelligence.
And improved, right?
Right, so we have to be at the forefront of thinking about what does that reskilling for the world mean.
So tell us about the benefit, I would assume, in your role is you get to try all this technology on your own marketing before you go out to the world. So tell us a little bit about what you're learning about how it's changing how you engage with consumers, how you engage with agency partners.
Yeah, well, I do feel like a kid in a candy store in some of this. And so I think that two big technologies that are reshaping marketing are both artificial intelligence, but also on the horizon is blockchain. I'll start with blockchain, I'll come back to AI, because maybe it's a little less intuitive on the blockchain side. Blockchain, as many people know, is sort of this distributed network to create trusted relationships along a complicated supply chain, so that everybody can have access to the same information in a complicated supply chain. If you think about complicated supply chains, one of the most complicated ones is actually media buying. You think about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, if I spent $1 as a CMO, if any of your CMOs spent $1, about 85 cents of that would actually go in front of the customer you were trying to reach. You'd pay your agency, you'd pay some for some media trafficking, but by and large, most of that money hit the end consumer. Today, that number is 45 cents. And the reason is there's so many more middlemen in this complicated media buying chain. If it's, your ad traffickers, your DMP, your DSP, all sorts of players that exist in this now complicated ecosystem. And secondly, none of us as marketers have full visibility into exactly where all of our ads are landing across the world. So what blockchain has the potential to do, and we've got some really big pilots going on now with Unilever, a lot of our agency partners, and what blockchain has the potential to do is actually create a more trusted, verified way, take, I think, some middlemen out of the equation, rationalize spend. So I'm excited about what blockchain can do for media buying. AI is the other big thing that's reshaping the marketing profession. Marketing is no longer just art, it is data science. And it's not as contemplative as we would like, it's a real-time sport, as you heard from the last panel. And so with that, we need things like artificial intelligence. There are three ways I think about AI for the field of marketing. The first is it's allowing us to understand our customers much better. Tone, voice, personality insights, what you're saying in a chatbot, we're getting richer nuance about what it is our customers actually want. You can type in, if you're a consumer company, somebody can type in black dress and mean a lot of different things about what they're really trying to find. So I think AI will give us more nuance, a better, richer understanding of our customer. Secondly, I actually think it'll change the way advertising works. We've got some ads now that are live through Watson Ads with a lot of our partners and clients that are interactive ads. We do this with Campbell Soup, uses Watson Ads. And Watson Ads allows you to say, what's in your refrigerator? Okay, here's what's in your refrigerator. If you combine it with this soup, here's a meal you can make. So interactive ads. So it's not this sort of, here's my ad, take it, but allowing the customer to really interact in new and rich ways with advertising. And then the third thing, I think, is just like every other profession, marketers' jobs are being changed. We cannot process all the data we have. We cannot make sense of all the information we have. And even if we sort of have our head slightly above water on that, the deluge keeps coming.
Right.
And so we need artificial intelligence, and we have lots of things going on at IBM in our marketing department where AI helps our marketers understand and assess what is the next best thing they can do to further optimize their campaign or to improve the effectiveness of their dollars. So those are the three ways I think AI will reshape the marketing profession.
That's exciting. So that actually takes me to our question for the audience. So everybody get out your phones. The question we have for you, and I'm going to ask the question, let you guys answer. Michelle will then answer, and then we'll come back to this as you guys all rate this. So our question is, what has challenged the traditional role of the CMO the most? How many? Sorry, I was too fast on that. There you go. All right. And the choices include millennials and evolving consumers. I love the conversation about millennials this morning. Mobile phones and technology, tighter marketing budgets, rapid pace of change and the ability to transform and react quickly, or all of the above, and like 10 other things we probably didn't list. Obviously, you mentioned the deluge of information, and certainly AI can help with that. But when you think about and you've been in marketing in different roles, obviously, long enough to see this real transformation. What do you think are the hardest things? And then secondly, how are you honing your own skills or those of your team to really prepare for that?
Well, I actually think the most interesting question marketers face is not so much the what. There's a lot happening, and the consumer is changing, and technology is changing, there's no doubt. The real question for us is, how do we change? How do we behave differently? And if you think about organizational structure and sort of hierarchy, and if you're a student of management, as I try to be, over the past 3 or 4 or 5 decades, all of us have, in the spirit of trying to be more efficient, we've created really strong vertical silos. And this isn't just marketing. This is, I think, a broader statement. And, creating strong vertical silos allows you to certainly create expertise. It certainly allows for more efficiency, so that's a good thing. I think that model's broken now. And I think that model's broken because the things that are more prized than efficiency are the rate, pace, agility, adaptation, innovation. And so I think I think most C-suite and CEOs we talk to at IBM are grappling with culture more than anything else. They're front and center for them is, what kind of culture change do I need? How do I take advantage of all this technology, of all this data, of all this capability? How do I compete if I'm an incumbent with these small startups that can move so quickly? So I actually think the prevailing question is one of culture. And for me, we at IBM are the first company at scale in the world to be agile as a discipline as marketers. So we have over 5,000 marketers, and we operate in agile. That's not a adjective, it's a true discipline and practice.
So what makes that up when you say that?
Sure. So if you think back to 2001, when there was a group of very smart people in the Wasatch Mountains thinking about software methodology and saying that the traditional waterfall approach to software methodology was not producing the right results. And as a matter of fact, I was CEO of Travelocity at the time. We were one of the first to adopt Agile as a software methodology. So it's been a long-standing passion of mine. But it's always been thought of in the context, for the most part, of technology and software engineering. But the principles of Agile, which are things like self-empowered team, flattening hierarchy, retrospectives, daily stand-ups, courage, multidisciplines, small teams, the sort of principles and the practices of Agile are very relevant for other functions. And so when we set about as marketing about 2 years ago to really undergo an Agile transformation, it was brutal. It was really hard. And it was hard in very practical ways.
Right?
Yeah. And in practical ways, first of all, we had marketers we had a high work from home percentage, and marketers in almost every city. We had to ask our marketers to move to some central hubs. We had to redo all of our real estate to really empower Agile teams. We put marketers in what we call disciplines. We were very careful about what disciplines there are. We named guild leaders, but we said you're no longer going to be one of 500 content people who sit together or one of 300 product marketers that sit together. You're going to be distributed Agile teams. No Agile team is more than 8 to 10 people, multidisciplinary, analytics, product marketing, creative, media.
That's great.
You're going to physically sit together. You are aimed against maybe selling an offering or marketing to a certain profession or a certain client type. And we put people through 6 months of training. So this was not for the faint of heart. And we did intense work. And along the way, as the first company at scale to do this for marketing, we've had to figure some stuff out. And I've got some great agency partners in the room here with JD. But we had to figure out, how do we gear with our agency? Our most important agency in Ogilvy. How do we connect that gearing with our agencies? Mm-hmm. How do we think about, gearing with other parts of the IBM organization that maybe aren't fully in Agile yet? And so these social contracts between teams became very important.
What did you find was the hardest with the partners in terms of helping to enable that in other organizations?
Yeah, so I think for your big partners, it's pretty easy, and it's not been smooth, but Ogilvy really signed up right away to say, we understand this is the way you're working. By the way, for an agency, and I remember having this conversation with the CEO of WPP at the time, if you don't do, the fork is now. The fork is now. We are going in the Agile transformation. I have sat through stand-up after stand-up where people are saying, the agency is going to get back to us in X weeks. The agency is going to. Right. If you don't figure this out with us, you will be irrelevant. Flip side, if you actually figure out how to go Agile with us, you will be essential. We will never ever lose you because you will know more. You will be in our daily working process. So, to me, there's a fork in the road right now. Yeah. Right. Now it's not as easy for smaller agencies that you only work with sporadically, and we don't even try, honestly.
Right. But especially with your global scale.
Yeah. But for big agency partners, it's an investment, and Ogilvy put a ton of time and effort into Agile training themselves.
That's great. All right, let's go back to see what you thought of the question. If everybody answered. There we go. All right, so just the rapid pace of change and all of the above, which is, I assumed it would be all of the above, so I guess it's a combination of those bottom two. Mm-hmm. We've talked a lot about culture in each of the conversations today, and you've brought it up. I know coming up for International Women's Day, you have a big report that you guys are unveiling that really talks about culture. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I have the great privilege of running the Women's Initiative at IBM for more than 350,000 employees. And I think that, here's the thing. First of all, IBM has been at this a long time. It was 1953 that our former CEO wrote policy letter number 4, which said a decade before the Civil Rights Act, that we would hire, promote, make decisions irrespective of race, gender, and a bunch of other things. So we've tried as a brand. It's part of our estate. It's part of the DNA. But times are different, and the responsibility is higher, I think, for all of us. I think, here's my take on this issue of inclusion in particular. First of all, we know for a fact that more inclusive teams produce better business results. Now, you can choose not to believe that, but there's been countless studies and economic data that says that more inclusive teams are more creative, produce better business results. So I'm going to assume that people in this room agree with that for a second. Mm-hmm. Then here's the second most important question you can ask yourself is it actually a business priority for you and your company? It's a very simple question. Mm-hmm. Is it your top 5 business priority? Is it a top 7 business priority? Is it a top 10 business priority? Because if it's not, I can almost guarantee you will not make progress this year. You will just choose to say that it's important, but it's not important enough to be a business priority. You will not make progress. Mm-hmm. I can almost guarantee you if you say it is a top business priority, you will make a lot of progress this year. And it'll be easier than any other of your business priorities. You gain share here, fix your margin there, improve, return on every dollar. I mean, those are really hard things that are not entirely in your control. This is entirely in your control. And it's not a question for the women in the room. Really isn't. Mm-hmm. It's a question for the men in the room. Because you do hold 85% of board seats and over 80% of senior exec jobs and over 80+% of tech jobs. Like, it really is a question for you guys. If this is a business priority, there's a bigger pipeline than ever before. More women graduate from STEM, all these areas than men, actually. So the pipeline is there. early entrants a career there. We know more about bias and training and the tools we have at our disposal to take these, bias out of these decisions. We have more policies and practices about how to make sure there's more equality. So I think you leave this conversation, or I'd ask you to leave this conversation and just ask yourself that very simple question. Mm-hmm. Is it a stated business priority? Because if it is, you'll look at the data, you'll look at the numbers, you'll figure out where your challenge is, and you have so much ability to make change happen this year.
And is there anything in so much has been studied and demonstrated on the fact that inclusive teams do drive much better business outcomes. Is there anything game-changing that's coming out in your study that is really different than what?
I think there'll be a lot to talk about when we're ready to finalize it. But I think it is a particularly important topic right now, because if you think about, let's just take artificial intelligence. If we don't figure this out, we are going to entrench bias in these systems that will run more and more parts of society. And that's a problem. That's a real problem. And you saw this, IBM has been very front and center about making sure we're training AI to recognize different kinds of faces, and to recognize people of color, which is an issue in early sort of AI systems. So this issue will become much more pervasive as AI becomes more the way we work if we don't actually think carefully and thoughtfully about inclusion.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about the importance of, I think about your Agile teams and the notion of inclusion, which is very much aligned, obviously. When you think about how you consider the future workforce and the types of skills that you're looking for, how do you think about that, and what does it say about how we need to continue to raise and educate children?
It's a great question. The most important thing I look for is curiosity and a desire to keep learning. And the more senior you get, the more we all think we're great and we believe our own, and we're entrenched. And it's a real problem. I don't think people will succeed if they're not willing to be lifelong learners. It's actually a pretty rare night. My kids tease me about it, but it's a pretty rare night that, after they're in bed, I'm not doing some sort of training. And we've got great access to tools and stuff. I'm deep in the heart of cloud training right now, and Kubernetes and containers and all sorts of other stuff. But this is important as we think about all these new technologies, and whatever your profession is. I think the marketer of today and the requirements of the marketer today is very different than what it was 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. We didn't have all this data. We didn't have all these channels. We didn't have all this technology. Today is different than then. So we need people who are willing to constantly keep learning and keep reskilling. Mm-hmm. We also need new models of education. And one that I'm particularly proud of, where IBM has been a pioneer, is a program called PTech. Now it's 100,000 kids, so this is now at scale, 13 countries around the world. It's a 6-year program, and it's in the hardest of neighborhoods, but it's 4 years of high school and 2 years associate degree. It's a public sector initiative, but IBM was one of the founding partners, and then with some other corporations, we help each specific school think about what are the skills required. We give internships to all those young people for the entire 6 years. So if you come visit me, I've got some great interns from PTech that are working with me, and then we make commitments on hiring. Those kids it's amazing what the results have been from that program. And again, you're talking 100,000, and we are vastly expanding this now all over the world. So that's a new model of education. That's a kind of, education and work. Tighter alignment between the public sector and the private sector to make sure we're thinking about what skills are relevant now. It's a particular focus on STEM, so it's a particular focus on engineering and math and technology and science and design. So I think models like that, it's not the only one, but models like that are going to be important in the future. Tighter alignment between public and private sector, more skilling in the science and math areas, and this notion of maybe not a 4-year high school degree and a 4-year college degree, but these kind of new collar jobs.
That's exciting. Thank you for the leadership role that you and IBM are taking on all these fronts. Excellent. Thank you for being with us. You bet.
Thank you.